Careful of bombs.
Personals.
Come on, come on!
Send it, send it. Come on. Send it, send it, send it. Fucking send it.
Come on, let's go! Yes!
Fucking go, boys!
Oh my fucking god,
Oh,
boys.
let's go!
Fucking clean.
Holy fuck,
Beacon!
and the beacon.
Feed me the beacon. It's my fucking my beacon. I'm needing it. I rolled a 15. Yo!
Dude. First of all, why are you fucking flaming me on your stream? Bro, I've been live for less than 2 hours.
Yeah?
You guys are like, he's been stealing our content for 4 hours. What the fuck?
Well, you know, that's the hot topic right now. You know, reaction content. That's what you got to do. But no, I actually really appreciate you stopping by and watching. Actually, I'm sure it was entertaining. I can't, you know, I'm dreading watching the VOD. It was like, oh yeah, look at this terrible gameplay. Oh man.
No, I didn't. I didn't go after you. I didn't really go after anyone. So I actually haven't really watched people progress Sark like another guild. I usually work with other guilds, but this time I didn't do that. So I was kind of looking through like what kind of stuff you guys did differently than us, and then like why you did it and stuff like that. And I only watched it for like probably less than an hour or so, but it was it was kind of interesting to see the choices you all made. Some cool WeakAuras you had too. I guess that'll be interesting. So I guess the reason I want to talk to you is I want to for people who are new to this, either in Teapot's chat or mine, I had a conversation with you. Guild Wars 2 had like its first like 6th day, I think, raced world first, like a year or two ago. What was the name of the raid?
It's called Harvest Temple.
Yeah, Harvest Temple. And I was like, okay, this is cool. Not many games have like really challenging raid content. It seemed like it was like a big leap for Guild Wars. I think your team placed 2nd in that race, right?
That's correct, yeah.
Yeah, and you were really excited about it, and you wanted to talk about it, and we had like a really nice conversation about the like differences between like WoW and Guild Wars 2, and like how the race scene works and stuff like that. If people want to check that out, I think that is on YouTube. It might be.
It is.
I don't know. It's on the depths of YouTube somewhere, but it was a very interesting conversation. But now the roles have been kind of like they're totally different now. You are playing WoW. Tell me about the guild you're in. Was that just a guild you found, or are those like all Guild Wars 2 players?
Yeah, so I had a bunch of friends who were playing WoW at the time, so there wasn't a guild that existed. So I decided that I was going to go try it out. Finally, could go play some WoW. And then the guild kind of conglomerated around that. Got a bunch of friends there. We recruited people from my stream. Met a couple in game as well. Met some people in game. And some, yeah, there you go. That's how the guild formed. We formed. And then, yeah, that was actually one of the things that was actually quite difficult, was actually getting the roster together, because, of course, not everyone had played WoW, and more importantly, I think almost nobody had actually raided Mythic. So we didn't really know what to expect fully. And some people kind of got into it like, oh, man, yeah, this is too much, right? Like, it's a little bit too much. So we had to change people, find some new people, train some people up, right? Like, kind of recruit and build the roster. It was actually really rough, especially in the middle of the tier. So when we were around Rashok, we had a lot of roster issues. We took way longer to get through that boss because we just didn't have 20 people every time. Actually, very similar on Echo, actually. So I guess, you know, basically all the tier except Sarkareth, we didn't really have a solid 20, which is definitely really difficult. It's a big number, right? In Guild Wars 10 is a lot more manageable. 20 it's definitely really hard to maintain, especially when it's something that's pretty difficult, right? It's challenging content. It's nerfed now, of course, but we're all trash, so it's still difficult.
Well, there's a lot to unpack there, but I think something that's, well, we can talk about the like nerfs. I think WoW is just such an interesting game because I don't know if a lot of other games do this well. Like Final Fantasy, they come out with their ultimate. It kind of gets easier over time because like expansions come out and like there's like a little bit of like a stat squish and like making the characters go to that eye level or whatever. Yeah. And then I'm not sure if this exists in Guild War 2, but in WoW, it's like you can never experience it at its truest difficult point. Like the raid in like week 1 with the eye level you have, like naturally you gain eye level every week. The bosses get nerfed, but also, I mean, just the eye level you gain in like a couple of weeks is so massive. Do you wish in WoW, even from you're someone who likes raiding at a high level in other games, you're predisposed to this kind of thinking, but would you have liked the challenge of doing like the boss as we did it?
Yes.
And so you wish there was like some way where you could go back and do that, or did you appreciate the boss for the time you had doing it? Because like obviously you'll do the raid faster, and if you keep raiding in WoW with the same team, this is your first time doing it, like you'll absolutely do new raids faster, because I'm assuming you guys got a lot better from start to finish.
Oh yes.
Yeah. So like, so you did it like right in the finish line, right? So you wouldn't have had enough time to do it in the original version of the boss, but in future raids maybe you would. Just I don't know. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I definitely would like to be able to do that, and it is difficult, of course, in a vertical progression game. Like, you know, Final Fantasy 14 kind of has this, but again, you have the power creep. And you're right, it is similar in Guild Wars 2 as well, just because class balance changes, power creep happens, right? Different things happen. Like, that fight that that we had a chat about, Harvest Temple, that's now significantly easier than it was on launch. And that's because of balance changes to the game. It's still a challenge, you know, it's no disrespect to teams who get it now, obviously, but it is easier. And that definitely is one of the things that kind of sucks about, you know, MMOs in general, I guess, and games that evolve over time, they don't stay the same forever. So I would really like it, and, you know, this would be the absolute unhinged take, but yeah, I'd love if that was the case with essentially all of the WoW content, you know? I've been watching the Race to Worlds First for a long time, and it's like, oh, wow. I wish I could go back and do that and maybe get in, you know, at least have a somewhat similar experience. Well, you know, I can go in there and one-shot them, right? That can happen, but you can't really have the same experience. And yeah, that's definitely a big motivating factor for me to get better at the game, is because, yeah, absolutely, I do want to, a goal of mine would absolutely be to beat a boss, you know, the bosses, the end boss, pre-nerf. Right? I'm not going to be super bummed out if it doesn't happen. I still really enjoyed Sarkareth. Like, the fact that we were playing a significantly easier version because of eye level and nerfs compared to you guys in Worlds First, that didn't diminish my enjoyment. It's a great fight, really fun, actually. Yeah. Absolutely. But yeah, I would absolutely love to be able to have a go and, you know, essentially try and beat it at the difficulty level that you guys were playing at, right? Like with, what was it, like 437 item level, I believe, or something like that. And of course, more damage kind of across the board on a lot of these bosses. Yeah, stuff like that. I don't think Sark was actually nerfed that much. I know that they nerfed the dot Oblivion by 30%, and I think they lengthened the Enraged by a minute of the fight, but you guys didn't go longer than we did when we killed it, I don't think. So like that part of it isn't really relevant. So it's basically just the eye level, whatever eye level you're at now. Yeah, we had to do it with. Also, maybe they nerfed his health too. I'm not quite sure, but I don't think so. But yeah, I also think you said you enjoyed it. It was like kind of a shorter fight too, which is interesting. Like we had like the raid previous to this in Vault was the last boss was like a 14-minute end boss. It was literally twice as long. Yeah, and well, that boss was one of the worst mythic bosses they've made, but like for a lot of other reasons. But it was, I think you started at the right time. There's been better end bosses than Sarkareth, but generally speaking in WoW, end bosses that are sub 10 minutes, which there's only been 3 of them in the past like 5 or 6 years, they're like universally like, this is good. The whole question of like artificial difficulty, right? Like basically the thought is, and I'd actually be interested to hear if the question I'm getting around to is how this works in Guild Wars 2, but pretty much anytime there's a boss where part of the difficulty is that it is long, that is lame. Like you could turn that difficulty into it being a shorter fight where part of the difficulty isn't just being how long the fight is, and you could just make that shorter fight harder in an organic way, right? That's always the thought. What are like the fight lengths generally in a hard Guild Wars 2 fight? So it's weirdly enough, it's a bit up in the air right now. Harvest Temple is about, most guilds are going to be killing it first time at around probably 11 or 12 minutes. So that's a pretty meaty one, right? That's a pretty long fight. I would say it kind of depends on what's going on. For example, a lot of raid encounters can actually be kind of like 2 to 3 minutes. Some of the newer, more modern content is definitely on the longer side and can stretch up to 10 minutes. Like a lot of the more recent content that's been released is definitely towards that 10-minute type of length, for sure. I think it's actually a point of criticism in the game. I think it's a bit weird. They have gone pretty heavy on the health sponges on some of the bosses recently, and that continues to be a theme. There's a new one coming out actually on the 7th, so we'll see if that trend continues. But it's a little bit hard for me to actually answer that question in a particularly good way, because unlike World of Warcraft and a lot of other MMOs, Guild Wars 2 PvE has never really hit its stride. It's very hard to predict what they're going to do next. Like, is it going to have a lot of health? Is it going to have loads of mechanics? Is it going to be super, super difficult? Is it going to be something that dies in first try, right? It's hard to say with Guild Wars because, again, it's not really the main focus of the game. And as a result of that, it hasn't... We don't have a lot of history to go on with what's going to be coming next, exactly.
Yeah, cool. What is the group size in Guild Wars 2? Is it 8?
10.
10. Interesting. How did you... So again, you had to like... You had some friends, you had some people from Guild Wars. and you formed a 20-man raid. I think that's one thing that's like an issue with WoW. Right? There's more issues, but you just got done doing the raid. When you can get it all working together, it's like doing Mythic raiding is like fucking awesome.
Hell yeah.
But there's a big accessibility problem of even finding 20 people in the first place, right? And like, what was your experience doing that? I've always found that if you can find a group of people that has very similar skill parity, like around the same skill as each other, and then also has the same drive and motivation, then it's like euphoric. There's like nothing like this. But finding 20 people or even close to that has that is super hard. Did you guys struggle with that at all? You said you had a lot of roster changes and stuff like that, or did you like appreciate the amount of people, I guess, near the end?
Oh, yeah, we definitely had a lot of problems starting out. Our first bunch of raids were, you know, kind of different people every time. And again, I would say the best example of this was actually Rashok. When we were getting to Rashok, that's obviously when I feel like the raid starts to get serious. It's like, okay, you got to start pressing some buttons now. And that was definitely the point where our roster issues became a bit of a problem, because we basically had to reprogress a lot for a couple of sessions, because we just had a significantly different roster each time. People with like different experience levels, different gear levels, right? Like all this kind of stuff. Even a couple of pugs here and there that we just like force in from the stream. So that definitely is a problem. In terms of accessibility, I definitely think it is an issue for Mythic. I do say, though, to kind of defend it a little bit, I do like that having a 20-player group, it does allow you to do a lot with the raid. There can be a lot going on and a lot of group coordination involved there. But I think it could be done with less. 14 does it with less, right, obviously, and has super challenging encounters.
Well, very, very, very different raid fights and encounters.
Very different design, but absolutely,
Yeah, but see, that's the thing. This game used to have 10-man. I think there's some, like, tinfoil that 10-man might come back in the future. Just because WoW rating is great in the access... Like, there's like, I could go on and on about this forever, but specifically, WoW accessibility has a lot of other problems. Like, the main one is the Mythic raid lockout is, like, super
terrible,
dog shit.
terrible system.
Yeah.
What are they thinking? I don't understand.
Yeah.
It is so bad.
It makes no sense.
It is complete trash.
If you're a guild, you said you're progressing Rashok, and you maybe want to get someone out of the group finder who's going to do Rashok, you have absolutely no chance of doing that because they would have to voluntarily give up 4 bosses of loot they could get pugging on their own. And then on top of that, let's say you pug the first, if you say you pug Kazara and the second boss, and you log on the next day, you're like, you know what? I had a lot of fun progressing Amalgamation Chamber. I want to do that again. All right, I'm going to sign up on the group finder. You cannot even join a group that is on Amalgamation Chamber. You would have to join the exact same people you played with yesterday. And if you want to make your own group, again, you would have to find people that are willing to just give up loot instantly. It completely ruins the looking for group feature of raids. Raids end up not happening even within guilds when they're missing their 18th and 19th player or 20th player, because they just simply cannot replace that person. And there are probably Mythic bosses where you realistically wouldn't be able to get a pug to do them. But in general, that just puts a huge, barrier in place of like Mythic accessibility. So like that's part of it. But yeah, you're right about the 20-man. If they were to drop from 20-man, the integrity and the coolness of WoW rating would definitely go down. But it's possible that would be worth it for increased accessibility if they're not willing to move on from the Mythic raid lockout thing.
Yeah, it definitely is tricky. I guess the thing is that how important is it that Mythic raiding is very accessible? I think that's like the interesting question here, because it's kind of supposed to be very, very difficult, right? Anyway, it's like supposed to be like a really big challenge. I think fixing the lockout is definitely a big deal, but does it matter if, because this is actually really interesting. I get this a lot. There's like, oh man, if I can't raid Mythic, no point in even playing the game. Like that's I often get that as an opinion. I kind of understand where they're coming from. It's kind of an interesting perspective as well.
No, there's a lot to unpack there, but I think one thing that I think about a lot is, so there are people who are like that. I have to do the right thing. If you were to make 20-man more accessible, how many more people out there that aren't doing Mythic that would succeed, do well at it, and like doing it that aren't doing it now or trying to find it? I think there are people like out there that it's just like impossible to find the right guild. Like I think for a lot of people, when you're raiding in game, it's doing challenging content, but it's also playing a game with people that you identify with and like. Everyone in this chat can identify with being in like a Discord with like maybe 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 friends or 10 or whatever, maybe an old guild you raid in that you don't raid anymore, but you still keep in touch. People can form relationships with people that they want to play with, and the number 20 is just very large. So like Are there people that want to do that? Yeah, but like you usually try to find a way to get into a guild. The whole like, oh, I won't play the game unless there's there for Mythic. That's like a big difference between Classic and Retail. There's a big divide between those two games and how they're designed, which is kind of cool that they both exist. But one of them is, in Classic, to get the very best gear that's available to you and to do the hardest content is very easy in PvE, right? Like you log in for a raid, you can have absolute fucking just have no idea what they're doing, you can clear these raids, right? And if you compare that to like Retail, Mythic raiding is like really fucking hard. And that happens over time because, you know, player base gets better, you have to find ways to challenge them, and then you have different difficulties, and you know, you have to make the reward match with the difficulty, so naturally the hardest content's going to drop the best gear, and there, boom, after 10 years as a Classic player that's not very good, you no longer even really realistically have access to the best gear in the game.
Yeah, sure.
Which is like a big defining factor difference between those two games.
Yeah.
And that's a really interesting argument, but at the same time, it's like, I think the only way really around that, and this kind of ties back to something we were talking about before, we were talking about raid difficulty, right? Like, what if Blizzard developed a no vertical progression, but simply a feat of strength and some transmog maybe, or just cosmetic rewards, and what it is like world first mode, and you could basically, you and your guild would have the opportunity to fucking turn on this specific mode that will not grant you sick gear. It is just for cosmetic appearances, and what you were able to do is pull the boss with the eye level we had and the boss pre-nerf for any boss that's been in WoW, very similar to how you can pull old ultimate fights and Guild Wars 2 stuff. The issue is, who are you actually making that content for? You guys are new to this game, and you still were able to get cutting edge in your first patch, which is very impressive. Let's say next patch you do that in half the time. The amount of people that are even able to do cutting edge within a patch in general, how many of them would also have time to willingly progress this content that is giving them this feat of strength and cutting edge thing? Maybe it's something like, when do you have the time, right? And how many people don't even get cutting edge? So you have to ask yourself, in a game where Blizzard probably constantly has to decide who they're making the game for, and really the reality of it is they're making it for like 5 or 6 different factions of people, and it's kind of hard to make the game amazing for any single one of them. You're kind of alienating a lot of people by spending resources creating something like that. So I don't know, but I'm assuming you guys would want to do that. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, I think stuff like that would be really cool. You know, the the Guild Wars 2 player of me just says, hey, just make it so the best loot drops from Heroic, and just make it so that Mythic isn't relevant in terms of the gear progression, and then away you go. However, I definitely am aware of this. I've had some talks with some WoW players who watch my stream, and yeah, a lot of them do care about progression. In fact, you know, the other guy, other tank, Demon Hunter, very bad player, he actually really is a big into vertical progression, loves upgrades, loves min-maxing the gear, all that kind of good stuff. Yeah. So I definitely think that there is that overlap. There certainly is an overlap of players who really love the challenge of Mythic, but also love the idea of, you know, beating a really hard boss. You get a stronger item, and that improves your character. So I feel like with any solution you come up with here, there's always going to be a compromise. Like it's going to be not quite right for certain demographics of people. For example, I am not motivated by vertical progression whatsoever. In fact, I kind of view it as an encumbrance. If I could just play on the tournament server of WoW, or you know, like the test server, and just grind M+ all day, I would do that.
Wow.
I do not care
so
about prog
I know
at
a few
all
people.
Yeah.
I know a few people like that, and I can tell you that you started playing WoW at a good time, because this specific patch, the gearing system is as close to what you just described as possible. Like, we are this gearing system in this patch specifically is one step away from being log in and just equip tournament realm level gear.
Oh yeah.
And then Blizzard, interestingly, yeah, because games do that pretty differently. Like in Final Fantasy, gear is kind of a means to an end. I don't really know how it works in Guild Wars 2, but one thing that WoW has always really held on to is the feeling of getting the drop, the feeling of the dopamine hit of looting this insane item that took you 2 weeks to farm or whatever. And that's like something. Yeah, and there are people for sure. Sounds like you're one of them that are like, I don't care about that at all. I just want to play the game and have the best stuff and just play. There are absolutely people. Yeah, Dorky, JB, a couple people who constantly advocate for that.
Yeah. It's a tough problem to solve. It's a tough problem to solve because, you know, like Mythic raiding, stuff like higher keys, right? That, in some sense, is like inherently exclusionary, right? Because some people are not going to be able to do that, right? Because it's difficult. So there's always going to be an inherent accessibility issues. The key is like, how do you minimize that, right? Like, how do you minimize the accessibility issues and allow players to do that? I definitely think a really good way to do it would be the Mythic lockout system being essentially removed. I'll have like a stab in the dark on this. I guess one of the reasons they don't want that is so you can't do splits on Mythic. Do you think that's like a factor in it, or is it just purely because of get a guild, quote, game director, roleplay, right?
No, I don't think so. I've actually asked him this directly. And also there's a little bit of history with WoW I think you should know, and that is that there was a time in WoW when Blizzard like clearly designed a patch or a raid for like the world first teams or the 1% or whatever. That term is thrown around a lot, often incorrectly, but there was one time when they did that for sure, and it was Sepulchre. That was last raid of last expansion. And they have not done that since, and pretty much most of their decision making, the only people who would be worried about doing something like Mythic splits would be like the very top end.
Low amount of guilds, yeah.
Exactly. So like making a change and stopping yourself from making a good change for everyone because there is a, because it will affect the top 1%. They just simply haven't made decisions like that in a long time. So they kind of don't, they are not, and this is good that they do this. Speaking as someone who would benefit from them not doing this, they do not really consider race world first and stuff for decisions they make for like the systems in the game and stuff like that. And that's definitely good for the game. So I don't think it would come down to something like that. But yeah, I don't think Mythic splits. I think the answer, I wish I could pull up the exact answer, but I asked him literally word for word the Mythic lockout thing. I even gave examples on how it was bad, like the two I gave you earlier. And he was like, Mythic is something that we don't expect to be accessible to the entire game base, and we like its difficulty, and we think that it's a commitment. I hated this answer. He was like, we like that you have to commit to like a certain raid and show up. Like you shouldn't be able to just join any Mythic thing. I just think that's totally off base for sure. So yeah, I will hopefully by the end of this, maybe someone in my stream can. It was one of the interviews I did with Ian specifically, and he answered that and gave a full answer to that, and maybe someone can pull it up. But I hated the answer at the time. I've asked it multiple times since, and they're kind of off of it. But I do agree with you that it is one of the biggest plagues in WoW right now, for sure.
I think like alleviating that would go a long way to improving the accessibility there for sure. I think
the Mythic, if anyone ends up doing Mythic splits either in World First Progression or in top guilds, that is a absolute like ant of a detail that is a negative for the amount of positives it would bring to the majority of the WoW rating community, especially those on the lower end. It would just be fucking insane for gear acquisition and being able to actually do Mythic raid fights. My question, I have another question for you. So you've now done Cutting Edge and you did a bunch of keys. What key levels did you get up to?
So 29's highest keys. Rating 29's. Is 3655. So just barely above the cutoff. Just barely.
Oh, nice. So you're going to get cut off your first time, hopefully, too.
Yeah.
So what,
surely.
Yeah, so you've gamed a lot. So tell me about your experience, Mythic Plus and rating. Like, WoW has this dichotomy between the two. It's like rating is this thing you do once a week with your friends, and it's a much higher group size. And then Mythic Plus, and it's like one-time do kind of thing. You kill a boss, you maybe do farm, but you mostly just do the boss one time and you're done. But Mythic Plus is this like repetitive, do it all the time, infinite scaling key system. Tell me about both of those, and like, do you enjoy one more than the other? Do you think they both have their place? Like, how has your experience been like fully diving into PvE for one patch?
It's just a super interesting question. I really like them. I really like Mythic Plus a lot. I think it is an exceptionally good game mode, actually. A lot of fun.
I feel like no other MMO has a game mode like Mythic Plus, right? Like, I guess Criterion in Final Fantasy is technically right. Like, it's not. I just don't think Mythic Plus.
There's no infinitely scaling mode in Guild Wars 2, but there's something similar. There's like scaling dungeons in Guild Wars 2 called fractals. So it's similar, but not like the infinite level of something like Mythic Plus. Yeah, I definitely think that it does really define itself as an excellent game mode. It says a lot that you can basically take 8 dungeons and it can be engaging for a very long period of time. Because of that scaling element, because of all of the tactics that you can employ, like using your abilities, like having to path through the dungeon, choosing which trash you're going to kill, right? Like using various things, like, you know, using stealth, right? Like, or doing whatever you're doing, right? Skipping mobs and so on. And also what's really interesting, this is really cool, which of course you would expect, but the dungeons play out very differently when you get to higher key levels. Like attacks that weren't really a crazy big deal at a lower key is like, oh yeah, this is absolutely destroying me now, right? Like, and you have to be really, really careful about it. I think it's incredibly good, right? Incredibly good. Like anything that can be so much fun that affixes don't ruin it has got to have something going on there, you know? Like if I can have fun in a week that has sanguine, then wow, that's a good game mode. You know, that's a beast mode game mode right there.
Yeah, actually, that's good, because a lot of the people you hear talk about Mythic Plus are people who've done it forever, so they're like really jaded about it, and they have very strong opinions about affixes and stuff like that. But yeah, from a new player, I would definitely. So we've been playing with Sanguine for a lot of years, and it's a lot of people aren't very happy about it. But that is yeah, I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, I like that. You know, bolstering fortified. I had fun with that. Yeah, it's good.
Do you know what old bolstering used to be?
It used to give health, I believe. I've had some horror stories, because a couple of guys in my chat, they did a lot of M+ in Shadowlands and stuff like, you know, people telling me about stuff like necrotic, and I think, what were they thinking? Right, this is unhinged. There's like actual lunatic affix. I joined it at the right time. What can I say? Used to be a lot worse. You know, that's my
it used to be. Well, it used to be a lot worse and better. Weirdly, like the actually, I mean, if you were to ask most people, they would tell you that this is like their least favorite Mythic Plus season in a very long time.
Really?
I'm sure you've heard that.
Wait, I haven't heard that actually. That is fascinating. Well,
So the dungeon set, dungeon set's a little weaker than most. Specifically, a lot of people in this game care a lot about the comp. So there's been times in this expansion where. So you're playing with a group of friends, right?
Yes.
Most of the time you're playing, you're not signing up and pugging in the group finder?
Yes, that's correct.
All right, well, a lot of people like to do like higher 20 keys or mid 20 keys just by signing up in the group finder. But this patch has had a really weird issue where at the beginning of the patch and in Season 1, it's probably been as balanced as it's ever been. If you signed up as whatever class, you were getting invited because so many classes were good, or for the most part. And then Temp 1.5, this like god comp emerged where it's been the best comp that's ever been in the history of Mythic Plus. Like the next best thing where you swap out any part is like noticeably not as good. And that has been ruined it for a lot of people. This wouldn't really affect you guys because you're just gaming on your own, you don't really care. But for people who are like having to sign up and get in groups, if you're not playing one of these 5 specs, with you're not getting in, which is a huge, I mean, if you think about it for the average player, how can they say a Mythic Plus season is good when they just can't play it, right? So yeah, they are. It's been like pretty dobby. And before I talk about anything else other than the balancing, because that's been a huge hot topic with the introduction of this game's first support class, is there used to be seasonal affixes in this game. So like every season there would be like it would be Fortified Tyrant every week that would alternate, and they would have 2 other affixes and had another affix, and it was a seasonal. And it was like kind of like Kiss Curse, like it was negative but also positive. Some of them were absolutely horrible. Very, very bad. They made the game worse by existing, like most affixes do. But some of them were so good that it like defined the game mode and made the game mode a lot more fun to play. So while you're saying you love Mythic Plus, which is obviously great, it's like kind of like up and down based on the season, based on what you want to play. There's like for example, if you would have played during like Encrypted or Awakened season and that was your first Mythic Plus season, you would like it even like significantly more than you like it now.
Yeah, that's really, really interesting, and I completely agree about like I've heard a little bit about the seasonal affixes, and I do think that is actually key to making a system like the affix system enjoyable, is basically having a reward for playing it correctly rather than it just punishing you for something happening. Like a lot of affixes, they just feel very annoying, and you're like, oh wow, this is happening. Oh boy, I can't wait for that incorporeal to spawn. It's going to be so great. But I definitely think that, yeah, if it kind of does give you a little bit of strategy and something that you can play around that can give you some kind of payoff, I think that is key to making a system like that more enjoyable to exist with, for sure.
Yeah, and I don't think we need to spend too much time. The amount of Discord calls that have happened on stream about affixes in the last year would blow your fucking mind. But we are going to, I mean, the new XPAC announcement and all of its big features are being announced in a week. So we are probably going to know. There's no real reason to discuss it. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of talk like, do affixes make sense? Should you do positive affixes? Kiss, curse. Like you said, there's a big feeling in the community of what you said where some kind of reward for doing the thing feels nice, right? Like, I mean, encrypted, one of the best things ever. You spawn an ad. You can choose which ad you spawn. Are you familiar with encrypted?
No, I don't know. I don't know what that one is.
So I'll just like kind of briefly describe it to you. So like there's like these relics that spawn. Let's say there's like 6 or 7 of them within a dungeon, and you can choose which relic to leave alive, or I think the one you kill. I forget exactly which one it is. But like you target one, and that ad will spawn. The 3 ads would do these 3 things. They would each have slightly different mechanics, and you would AoE them down on top of trash packs. But one of them would give you like 15% haste for like 20 seconds. The second one would give you a massive amount of CDR. For like 10 or 20 seconds, it would make like 2-minute cooldowns, 1 minute, you know, just like, so you're constantly getting CDR throughout a dungeon. And the third one made you all invisible and be able to move past mobs that see stealth and move at like 200 or 300% speed to do skips throughout the dungeon that you wouldn't otherwise be able to do. And basically just throughout the entire season, you were able to, like, in certain spots, pick a certain thing. It constantly was changing, so you were like innovating. Oh, like we used to do this skip here, but we found another way to do the skip, so we can actually go for the damage to like get a little bit faster key done. It encouraged skips that were never possible before. It made classes that were heavily CDR scaling like feel so much better because you had so much more uptime. Like it was just like the best time to play Mythic Plus by far. And I really think that, you know, when they decided to remove seasonal affixes, it was really unfortunate because some of the most fun that the game has ever been is when they've done the seasonal affix as well, but unfortunately they're like 50-50 with it. Like sometimes they're just absolutely bad, and it like makes it has the opposite effect. It's like this, like Mythic Plus is significantly worse because this exists.
Yeah. I guess just you know, I think we would move on, I guess, to whatever you want to talk about next. But yeah, I guess the entire conversation was very interesting to me regarding M+. And I actually did mean to ask some WoW players about this because, of course, this is my first season of Modern WoW. I have not played any Mythic Plus. This is my first Mythic Plus season and first Modern WoW raid season ever. So I had no frame of reference. Like, is this a good season? Is this a bad season? Like all this kind of stuff. I was super interested, like, because you know, I was gonna actually err on and say this is like a pretty damn solid set of dungeons. I was like, oh yeah, these are pretty fun. I like these. I like these dungeons. Maybe, you know, Neltharian's
How long has
Land
Guild Wars
that's
2
good.
been out?
For
How long has Guild Wars 2 been out?
10 years. It's an old one.
Okay.
11 even.
So does Guild Wars 2 have this situation where you have like a bunch of players who've played the whole time, but like still play the game, but are very jaded about it, and usually have very, very abrupt negative opinions on like everything?
Yeah, that's
or
me.
is it like? Oh, okay. Well,
nah,
so the WoW,
absolutely, yeah, of course, yeah.
Yeah. So WoW has that real bad where there's been times I actually can point to a few times where if I look back and you were to actually bring it up on stream right now, the stream chat would say like, "Oh, that was one of the best times in WoW," and during that time in WoW, people fucking hated it.
Yep.
Yeah, they were like, "This is absolute fucking dog shit."
Yep.
So like, I think you have the ability to tell that the game is a little bit good or bad based on certain things. You can like actually point to things that are there, but as far as like the community response, the real answer is no one actually ever knows how good or bad something is until you are removed from it enough to have your negative bias kind of go away, and you can really just think about the time you had when you spent it there. Like I don't know, it's hard to tell. This is definitely not a bad season. Like Mythic Plus players will tell you it's the end of the world because of AUG, but it sounds like that hasn't really affected you. And then the raid, I mean, certainly a good raid, right? It was better than the first raid this season. Actually, I'm really interested in how you handled a few bosses. So this raid had some awesome fights, and it had some very like historically controversial and really poorly made fights that kind of threw a wrench in everything. Like you just got done with Sarkareth. Sarkareth is certainly a good / great end boss. It's not top 5, but it's probably top 10. It's a really good fight. But, you know, a lot of the other fights in that raid, what was your experience with Skarn? When did you kill Skarn?
Skarn, let me check the old MRT. We killed it quite a while ago, actually. I don't know exactly when, but it was a while ago. And I you know, this boss is really interesting. I feel like it should be a sick boss. Like conceptually, I feel like it's a really good idea. But in practice, yeah, I imagine it's not exactly a really big favorite. In particular, I found the camera to be extremely annoying there on that fight while trying to tank it and like get it in the right position.
Yeah.
I found it super annoying actually, and just well, I imagine it was of course worse because it had the random component right on the original incarnation of that fight, which I imagine was fun to deal with as well. But yeah, for sure, like that fight, it should be good, I think, but it just. It's definitely not one of my favorites, that's for sure.
Yeah, so that was one that was really good coming out of testing, and it's also, I think this is maybe the only boss that I can think of like this, but we killed that boss, like, in its original version. It's pretty close to the one you guys are killing now, except I believe the differences are, the dragon head spawning is based on the boss position and not groups of player position.
Yes.
And I think the boss had 30% more health, and the golems had 30% more health. And we had, I think we were like 434 eye level or something. That's the only like change for Skarn. But we had a really, I'm not sure if you watched our kill, but we had like a really low pull, and then we like everything was going away. It was our first time being that low, and I just screamed like, get on the wall, and we just YOLO'd it from the wall from 4%.
The strat, right?
Yeah, but that was not our strat going in. We like YOLO'd that in the moment. We never spoke about it. Yeah. Exactly. But then a little bit of history of Skarn. It got really, really fucking bad. Like they so even the second and third kill, Echo and Method, they did the wall from 20% to 0. And then I think it was like a week and a half later, guilds were tanking it.
Very nice.
And tanking it on the wall from 100% to 0. They just stood on the wall, had the tank run out into the fire to bait the thing away, and then they brought the boss back and they just killed it over like a super long period of time. It was a huge meme. And then really controversially, did you guys extend at all during your progression?
We did, yeah. Basically, we started descending after Magmarex. Mostly because of time pressure, actually, because we only started playing about halfway through the season. I think we probably would have done a lot more re-clearing if we had started earlier. Yeah, because I started playing in about the middle of June, and of course, then other people followed after me, and then we started getting into it. So yeah, we did. I think we extended too late. Probably, realistically, we ended up probably wasting a fair bit of time on progression and kind of learning new things. Couple of some of the experienced WoW players, another player who already had Cutting Edge and played a lot of raids historically, was telling me like, why are you not extending? Are you insane? Right? And yeah, but we did end up doing that. After Magmarex.
Yeah. So that's it's been a thing for a while. Like there hits a certain point in progression for most guilds where you're like, the time we're going to spend re-clearing these fights is going to be long, and we're going to waste more time doing that than the gear we will gain for it will gain us on these bosses. And especially in this patch, it was almost instant because you were geared instantly in this patch, right? So people extended really early. All right, so on Skarn, something happened that I think has not happened before, which is they nerfed or fixed a boss midweek. So midweek on Skarn, they fixed that wall strat, and they nerfed the fuck out of the fight. Like, the version after they nerfed the wall strat was like I said, it was the version that we killed world first, but these guilds had more eye level, and the boss had literally 25% less health and the golems. Like, it was an absolute fucking joke compared to what it was. But still, these guilds were getting these free kills of Skarn with the wall strat, and then midweek, if you like happened to raid on Thursday, Friday, or Monday, right, or Saturday, you were not able to kill it the cheese way. And all the guilds who did early in the week, they just extended for the rest of the tier and never had to kill Skarn again. So most of the WoW Hall of Fame is actually filled with like guilds that got through Skarn and then never had to re-progress the real fight of it, and then were able to just go all the way through and do it. Where meanwhile other guilds like were either halfway through doing it or didn't get to attempt it, and they had to do the boss the real way and lost a ton of time. So that was really contentious. And it like caused a ton of problems.
Always sucks when something like that kind of slips through the net, right? And because ideally, like, that just doesn't make it to the live game, right? Like, we would have essentially the version of Skarn we have now, but back then, right? Yeah, it definitely really sucks when there's some kind of unintended, I wouldn't say exploit exactly, but yeah, kind of weird thing that breaks the fight in a sense, that kind of slips through the net. That's always very unfortunate for that to happen in a tier, of course.
Yeah, and then Echo, and then Magmarax was kind of like. Actually, tell me your experience with Magmarax.
Magmarax, I do think it is a fun. It's actually a fun fight. Actually, I don't hate the fight. It's just should have been earlier in the raid, right? Like it's. I almost feel the same way about Skarn as well, actually. Although I think that's actually because we got a lot better at the game when we were progressing Rashok. Like Skarn and Magmarax both felt way easier than Rashok to beat. But again, I think a lot of that was because we were still learning to press the healing buttons and press the DPS buttons and press the personals.
If you fought Rashok, Rashok later, you would have been better at Rashok. Rashok is genuinely a hard fight, right? So yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah, and I think it's fun. I feel like it's missing a mechanic. Right, it could do with one more on top of that, because it's that kind of classic. Oh, you've got to kill it before it kills you. I actually really like the concept of it, with you have to move around the arena and push away the fire, and eventually it's going to cover the room. You got to kill it before that happens. That's a cool idea, but yeah, it's probably missing one extra thing to make it a little bit less of just basically a DPS golem, right? That just kind of sits there and you kill the boss eventually.
Yeah, it's definitely. So Magmarax was actually a worse boss on testing. They made it slightly better, but yeah, I mean it's no one was happy with Magmarax. It was even this is the first I was talking to a developer in an interview, and they said that Magmarax and Rashok should have swapped positions, like you said. Like it makes sense for people in the community to throw that out, but I've never heard of a dev just being like, yeah, that boss didn't really work, and Rashok should have been later. But yeah, Magmarax was definitely missing a few things, and it also was living up to the potential of a few absolute banger, like mid to late tier bosses, like Smolderon coming up in the next raid, if you've seen any preview of him, or Sludgefist in Castle Nathria, a very famous, great boss. This boss just had absolutely nothing going on. But that being said, I think I've never met a guild that has killed Magmarax in an amount of time that they're happy with. Like when we killed this boss in like 17 pulls or something, we were like so mad. We were like, dude, we fucking suck. Like we should have killed this boss so long ago. And then we were like, man, Echo and Method are gonna wake up and kill this boss in like 3 pulls. They fucking wake up. They take the same amount of time. They're both equally tilted. Like, yo, why the fuck do we not kill this boss instantly? This is so easy. Nothing's going on. And then like, as it's gone on, I've learned to respect Magmarax more. As much as I'm not a fan of the fight, it has definitely been a challenge for guilds where it is. It's actually one of the fun healing fights if you're a healer specifically, and it's actually like low-key harder than it looks because just everyone fucking feeds on that fight for whatever reason.
Yeah,
but
you don't respect it. That's actually the kind of meta element of some of these raid fights. If everyone thinks it's easy, brain is off, rotation is on, I press button, I'm not doing anything, and then you die. You miss a soak. You go, oh well, unlucky. Someone puts the pool in the wrong place. Enjoyable. Very good. Yeah. Absolute classic. And Magmarax definitely has the mind games, the mental games on players. Yeah, and funnily enough, yeah, we had a very similar experience. We definitely took way longer than we should. To be fair, it didn't take that long. I think it was we took like 40 tries on it, I think, which is definitely way too many, right? But yeah, not we definitely underperformed there. And a big part of that was that it was in our mind that, oh yeah, this boss is a joke. It's so free. We got Rashok, we got Skarn. Oh, this is easy mode. Let's already start Echo, right? Let's
literally
go to Echo,
every single guild, including the world first guilds, did what you just said. For whatever reason, Magmarax fucking clowned on all of them. But then I need to talk to you about Echo of Neltharion. So that boss, I think that boss is like one of the bigger failures they've had in a while. And the really worst part about it, you have to look beneath the surface a little bit. It was a much better boss on testing. The testing version of Neltharion, you could break multiple walls. You could take the volcanic hearts to multiple different parts of the room, and there wasn't as much need for this crazy. I can actually show. Yeah, I can show you our testing actually, and show you that in a minute. But the what they did wrong with that fight was big fight design mistakes that they made to an already good fight that made it worse. And then that was the first fight. It's your first raid. That is probably the only fight in the history of World of Warcraft where you feel like you're progressing WeakAuras than you are progressing the game. A lot of people in chat will immediately bring up fights that had really impactful WeakAuras that got WeakAuras nerfed, like Star Augur or Archimond, but those were helping you solve a very, very hard mechanic, and you were already paying attention to other things and that mechanic, that it made those mechanics doable and easier, but you were not progressing that. On Neltharion, you don't even feel like you're doing a fight. You feel like you are waiting. You are seeing people progress at getting better at this little fucking map mini game. Did you use a map, WeakAura?
We did, yeah. Yeah, we did.
So you're seeing people get used. It's like super inorganic. It's not fun. it's just fucking trash. Like that like ruined really a otherwise could have been very very good fight. But yeah, so I'm assuming you. What was your experience on Echo of Neltharion?
So I think that my experience is absolutely tainted by the fact that I was tanking, and I didn't really have to deal with that much. So actually, to be honest, I actually really enjoyed the fight. However, you know, I'm not a fool. I'm aware that, yeah, the WeakAuras situation there, super annoying, especially when the bombs were bigger. Like, we essentially, of course, had the smaller heart variant, which definitely makes it a little bit less frustrating to deal with that, I think. But for sure, yeah, not ideal. And, you know, I think it's good to see Blizzard try and take steps to prevent stuff like that from happening again. We'll see if they're able to prevent it with the private auras. Maybe it's just going to be like every boss is going to be covered in lists. Who knows? But yeah.
No, yeah.
But yeah, no, I actually quite like the fight. From the tank perspective, I think it's kind of fun. I will say this, and this is actually going to be a controversial take. I'm just going to ruin my reputation with the WoW community in one fell swoop. I'm not a huge WeakAura hater. In my opinion.
Yeah. Dude. Yeah. You're so. First of all, I'm just gonna stop you right there. You're wrong. The WeakAuras are bad for the game is like this massively misunderstood, terrible casual take, or add-ons are bad for the game. What you are saying is largely by people who play the game considered correct. Yeah, you can continue though.
Oh, okay, yeah, fair enough. Yeah, no, I appreciate the correction actually. It's really hard to tell like how people actually feel, right? When of course you only interact with a small segment of the community. That was definitely, funny enough, if it's interesting to you, that was definitely the impression that I got. Was that like everyone thinks that it's like complete trash, right? Like delete it from the game, right? But yeah, super interesting.
Well, I mean, this patch specifically, like Neltharion was maybe as bad as WeakAuras have ever interact with you because like it's just like so not fun. And I can actually tell you, so a lot of the private auras they've come up with the next raid, and they've done a lot more of them. None of them are like Echo of Neltharion. If you remember, there's actually there's a private aura on Forgotten Experiments. You probably never even thought of this. It's where people get picked by that bleed by the first boss where he charges in like a triangle. Okay, that is a same thing with a private aura where a weak aura cannot tell that you have that bleed. If you did not have private auras for that mechanic, what people would do is have 3 markers down. A weak aura would tell you to go to star and then it would be automatically solved. But Blizzard wanted you to just YOLO it. And that is an example of private auras that worked exactly correctly. It's not a super important mechanic. And because of that, they're kind of saving you from yourselves for using weak auras. They just want you to YOLO it, right? I would say that the private auras that are applied to next raid, which they have like fucking 50 of them, are all things like that. They're not impossibly hard mechanic that needs thing. Yeah, they're so far they're not that could change. But yeah, I mean, Echo of Neltharion was like a huge like the whole pressing a macro when you have a thing or a list is dog shit. But none of those
super weird.
None or a map. They actually killed maps. Maps don't work anymore in the next patch. But then also the those things are but the anti-weak aura add-on thing is a big classic Andy take. No one likes when weak auras play the game for you in WoW, but if you're talking about weak auras in general, the amount of quality of life, UI customization, the amount of good things that weak auras do for the game is like fucking incredible. And more than anything, like on 99% of boss fights, a lot of people just use them as just a much better debuff frame, right? Their debuffs accept you, they're perfectly blacklistable. You can make ones that are really important pop out for you. You can make them play a sound. This kind of stuff is absolutely things that make the game of WoW better to play, especially for people with like disabilities and stuff like that. Yeah, I mean, it is a very common, extremely cooked take by people who definitely don't play WoW anymore, but shit on it constantly to validate their decision to quit. Situation. Not sure if you've dealt with that in Guild Wars, but the whole like anti-add-ons take is unbelievably fucking cooked. Yeah. Interesting stuff. Oh, delete THD. That's a nice little add to the.
Yeah, just get it in there. Yeah. I've heard about the THD takes. I've heard about them. I've seen.
Oh shit.
Oh yeah, no, it's Giga Chad. You know, I like that someone is willing to say bring back artifact power. That is a Giga Chad take, if you ask me. We love to see it.
Yeah, someone in chat said, isn't that missing the point? We want game to not need weak auras, not that weak auras are bad. Yeah. So it's kind of the same thing. And also this is why it's usually people who don't play WoW. There's like almost no fights where that is the case. Like I can point out to you like 4 or 5 fights since like Legion basically that have been
like the
somewhat
solving
close.
Power.
Yeah, that are like jailer bombs,
Yeah,
right? Or
yeah,
like Lords of Dread or things like that. That just doesn't exist on almost every fight in WeakAuras are universally positive. And by the way, no one who's arguing for add-ons or WeakAuras or whatever is arguing that those things are good. But those things are not based on WeakAuras, it's based on fight design. So it's like but the argument you hear is like, oh, add-ons should not be allowed in the game. And that is just absolutely fucking foolish. Like there's zero chance those people actually play well.
I definitely think there is something, there should be a little bit of pressure on Blizzard, I think, to make this, to kind of alleviate this issue, though. Like, for example, I think this is how it works in 14. It's also how it works in Guild Wars 2. If you have a mechanic like the hearts on Echo, for example, in those two games, you get a different color, right? Depending on that. So you can kind of use the different colors to solve that mechanic, for example, as opposed to kind of using the map and then kind of having to have the list to assign the number and so on. And I imagine you could do this for similar mechanics across the board. There are probably some like very extreme examples that are just like, oh yeah, without an aura, you know, good luck, have fun. But I think there are things that they could do in the game that would do this. I actually think, and this is something I find so interesting about WoW, I almost feel like they'd be reluctant to do that purely because of RP reasons. Like, there is a reason why next tier, it's going to be red swirlies on a red background, and Sarkareth is like a light blue
100%.
swirlies. It's because, and this fascinates me about WoW, I did not expect this at all. I actually expected the game to be almost like the opposite of this, actually. They really, really care about designing the game and the encounters in the world in a super RP immersive experience, right? And yeah, sure, you know, we can meme the story, we can talk about that, and I know that not everyone's super happy with the lore direction and so on, but it's fascinating to me that that's the way it is, because of course, it's not like, oh, Blizzard doesn't know how to make everyone get a different color. Of course they do, right? They're essentially just choosing not to, right? Basically, with a lot of this stuff.
No, you're exactly right. So this is, I would say the better way to phrase it is they approach pretty much everything theme first, not designed well first or gameplay focused. It is theme and then everything else. So we were talking about seasonal affixes earlier, right? Like one of the best ones ever was Awakened, where like you killed these like aberrations and were able to like go in these portals and shit. They did not start with, oh, we think it would be really cool to have these portals and shit. It was N'Zoth. It was this old god. It was like the whole thing was based around him, and because the theme fit, they made the thing off of the theme. You're exactly right. When they see a boss with a bunch of swirlies that are the same colors, but it's a grass boss, they're all going to be green because of that. And is that like perfect for visual clarity? No, they've had some bosses where it's bad, some bosses where it's good. And then oftentimes they'll like make changes mid-farm to make things like Denathrius had these like really cool blood puddles that spawned that were like super thematic, but they were impossible to see. So later on, someone like flipped a switch and turned them into these like JPEG shitty fire images, but like they're way easier to see. So like for playing the game, it was just better. But like you just know that they absolutely approach it from a theme and art perspective first. And for someone who is only gameplay focused like me, that is like, I understand why they do. Like, it's so weird. I don't know if Guild Wars 2 has this, but like, the people who are the most vocal about the game are going to be people who are like passionate and play it all the time. So usually high-end players, usually streamers, and then people who parrot streamers' takes, or people who are super emotionally invested in the game and have played it for a long time, usually end up near the high end. The people who you actually consider a casual, that term gets thrown around a lot, but those people are not posting on forums. They're not giving their opinions on Twitter. Those people are just logging on after a day of work, fucking having fun playing the game and just going and doing some other shit and taking care of their kids or fucking whatever, right?
Oh, yeah.
But they're not the people that are giving that information. Like, so let's just say you take a scenario where you make, you know, the normal mode of a raid have mechanics that, you know, are all extremely visually clear, but they don't really make sense for the theme or the vibe of the fight. Blizzard is usually designing the game for that person. For better or for worse, I think, and that person, maybe they appreciate that. I haven't spoken to a lot of them, to be honest with you. I know they exist, but like, you know, they're not really out there to be spoken to a lot of the times. They care about that more than anything else. They care way more about the game's theme and the look more than they do just pure gameplay. Yeah.
Yeah, and you know what? Actually, for what it's worth, I actually do think it does pay off. I really did, because you know, I'm not just I am a bit of a you know, try-hard gameplay enjoyer, that's for sure, you know, Tournament Realm fan, all that sort of stuff. But actually, I was very pleasantly surprised, again, by the world building and actually the thematic elements within the raid. I really enjoyed that, like the RP perspective. I think it looks great. I think it sounds great. I think the dialogue is very goofy, actually, but in the good way. It's because, you know, I play stuff like
Wait, what do you mean
Warcraft 3,
dialogue?
I'm
Did
very
you
used
listen
to
to?
it.
Did you read quest text?
Hell yeah. I am a quest text
wow.
reader. I'm a quest text reader. I'm a
Holy shit.
cinematic watcher. I love the bosses when they're making fun of you when you lose. Ha ha ha, melt. That is just such a good line. I love it. Unironically, though, yeah. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
great.
wow, yeah, that's very different for me.
Yeah, I think it's super cool. Like, you know, obviously, if I'm going into, you know, like full, I guess like full progression mode, right? I'd obviously optimize my audio settings so stuff isn't interfering with what's going on. But yeah, absolutely, like if I'm just kind of chilling, yeah, I love it. I'm gonna get involved and enjoy the RP.
What you just said is really interesting. Do you turn down dialogue when you're raiding?
No, I have dialogue on because I think it's useful.
Oh,
for
good.
A,
I was about
useful
to
for a
say,
queue.
dude,
Yeah.
Yo, absolutely. We have people. A lot of people do not play with game sounds on, and we have like raiders in our guild that use boss lines to queue them for boss abilities in lieu of like WeakAuras or whatever.
Yeah.
Like all the time. That's actually really smart. A lot of people. It's actually there are scenarios where it is actually better than WeakAuras that people have. Like I think an example actually is the Skarn traps arming. There's a sound in game that is just like better than the visual of it, and you have to like have sound on here. Yeah. So like it's definitely smart to do that. But I did not know you were like that. I'm probably the biggest extreme. Like if we were playing cardboard boxes and the next expansion's theme was just totally bullshit, I wouldn't care. Like if the gameplay and the combat and the raid fights and the dungeons are sick, that is actually all I care about. But obviously I know, I hope I'm self-aware enough to know that is like very, 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 very extreme. Like almost no one is like that thing, and they certainly don't make the game for me.
Oh yeah, you know, I'm definitely I'm okay with that as well. If we did have raids that were just, you know, cubes, you got to fight the cube and the mechanics, I would definitely enjoy that experience, but I just appreciate both at the same time. I do like a little bit of RP. For example, this is maybe this will be a fun take. I'm also a big fan of Classic, actually, specifically Vanilla.
Yeah, Classic's great.
Yeah, I really had so much fun. I did something kind of similar with Guild Wars 2, kind of took a break from Guild Wars 2 to go and
Why
play,
would it be
Vanilla.
controversial for you to say that I really like Classic? That makes no sense. Like no one, only absolute fucking weird. Maybe you've interacted with these people, but only absolute weirdo ghouls are tribal about their version of the game they like best, and like feel like it's controversial to like the other one because it's not the one that they play. Like only absolute fucking freaks are like that. Like yeah, that's not controversial.
Well, you know, there's a couple of those in my progression group, I guess. But
yeah, I mean, fucking true.
Yeah, no, sure, yeah.
It is extremely weird behavior, for sure.
Yeah, you know, it's weird, you know, it is disturbingly tribal, right? And definitely as playing more than one MMO, it's actually insane. One thing I've had that's, if I just kind of like grin and bear it and ignore it at this point, but oh man, you know, I've got the Guild Wars 2 players saying that WoW is complete trash. I've got the WoW players saying that Guild Wars 2 is complete trash. It's unbelievable. It's a wild ride out here. Okay, it's
I've always thought about the
from all sides.
I've always wondered about the psychology of it. I think like on a deep level, I think it's if my game is good, then it validates my decision to play it, and then my friends will play it, and I don't want them to leave my game. I think it's a little bit of that. I think, but like if you're being logical, if you like your MMO and you fucking love Classic more than any other MMO or retail or Final Fantasy or whatever, your best bet is for those games to fucking own. Maybe it's so you can play them and have fun with them, but it also forces your game to get better. So like other games being great is good for everyone, including your main game. But I don't know, it's like it turned into like a sports team thing where like your game has to be like Classic and retail appeal to two completely different players. And that's also perfectly fine. You get both of them with the same sub.
It's good.
Yeah, exactly. It's good. A lot of people play both. Having like weird opinions. I've never met a
good. Having different games for different people is good. It is a good thing. Everyone wins in that situation. Yeah, absolutely.
I have never met a reasonable or smart person that has had a like fucking weird ass take like that. It's just some weird like you have to grow out of it thing, or you're surrounded by people that are like that, so you like turn into your I don't know. It's very strange.
It is indeed. Highly unusual. The MMO, the tribes, they go to war.
Oh yeah, but that's not stopping anytime soon.
Oh, no, that's not,
I mean,
yeah.
it's also it's not an MMO thing. It's a gaming
Oh,
thing.
it's
Like, look at
everything.
League
League versus Dota. Yep, that was so fun,
it-
actually.
The tale as dude. In kind of a newer one is how CS:GO and Valorant fans feel about each game. That's like, bro, there is nothing because CS:GO is like very cultural in Europe. I mean, I'm sure you know this. Like, it's especially Eastern Europe. And like they were not ready for another game to be different or try their own thing or whatever. The hatred for Valorant from CS:GO players is like honestly impressive. Like it's crazy.
Yeah, they're competitive at hating the other game in all aspects. It's good.
Yeah, it's high level hating. It's hating and it's generational hating.
Absolutely is.
So what class did you play? You played Brewmaster in Guardian. Did you play any other DPS or did you try healing, anything like that?
Not now. I'm basically focusing, because I'm going to be tanking for the next tier. However, I am going to start playing the other roles next year as well. I want to obviously kind of develop myself as a well-rounded player so that I can better understand, because I'm kind of the scuffed raid league guild lead for the guild. So I want to understand what other players are going to be doing. And like how those roles function, so that I can understand and then perform my function better as well. And also just because I want to play a bunch of stuff. So yeah, I played all the tanks now. Actually, this tier, I'm kind of gearing up the remaining tanks. I've got my warrior, death knight, and demon hunter getting geared. I'm gonna hopefully have them kind of ready for the next season-ish for there. And yeah, I want to play a lot of different stuff in the next season. And definitely play some DPS. Definitely try out some healing as well, for sure.
Damn, so you're like fully into it. Yeah, I mean, also tanking, it totally makes sense too. Mythic Plus is definitely where you go to tank. Like in Raid, this has a super weird problem where, and we've had to do this in the Race World First a lot, your tanks are like your absolute best players. Tanking in the Race World First is insanely difficult. You are the only you're the only person who's like required to like multi-class like 6 different things and play them all with literally no gear. Tanks never get gear, never should get gear, at least in an optimal world. And you are having to do it's just like really fucking hard. And then you get like 1 reset of gear, and it's immediately like trivial. Like reset of gear for 2 tanks is like it just becomes easier and easier and easier over time. So like one thing in Mythic Plus is no matter who you are, you can keep pushing yourself to do a really high fortified key and learn how to live. But like unless you raid for world first, like at the very top, you are like robbed of ever feeling that way in raid. Like raid tanking feels like trivial in comparison.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, because the survival pressure is not super high. Like, I think there's a fair bit of damage on some of those fights for the tank, even now, that's for sure. But obviously, I'm at a much lower skill level than you guys, right? When you're going into it, like, fully unnerfed and with massively under-geared as well. And yeah, definitely, I think that playing a lot of Mythic Plus definitely helped me kind of gain the mechanical skill that's kind of helped me perform pretty okay, I hope, in tanking some of those raids for sure. And yeah, just doing raid, you can absolutely get good by just doing raid, especially if you're very motivated, right? You're doing log review, you're doing VOD review, right? You're constantly looking at your own mistakes and all that kind of stuff. You absolutely can. But I think Mythic Plus is great for forcing you to not suck. If you're trying to get high keys, because if you are not managing your cooldowns correctly, well, honestly, with all roles, but certainly as a tank, right, you're dead, and you're not going to be able to, chain pull effectively, right, and do what you need to do your role as the tank for accelerating the dungeon. So yeah, I think Mythic Plus is great, a really good way to kind of improve at the game and push yourself.
Oh yeah. So I did like a decent. I think I did most of the keys on like 29 and 30 for this season. I haven't done it in a very long time, but I really like the feeling of like as a tank, there is no reason for you to do and then maybe this is why the group finder is dead at a certain key level, like below 30, but like above 23 or 24. Doing like a 25, 26, 27 key non-fortified. Or even fortified, there's like, what are you even doing? You have no chance of dying, right? You're just like kind of existing in the key. The only way that tanking is really fun is like just cranking up the key level, and you start doing huge fortified, like crazy pulls. And then you feel like that is like, there's no feeling better than that. You are absolutely having more fun than everyone in the group because you are doing damage and you are living is genuinely difficult, and you have to learn how to do that, and that's super fun. Where in Raid, you never experience that because you can't continually crank up the tank damage, like, or else it kind of would feel that way. That's why Mythic Plus will always be, like, the places for tanks to get better, but also, like, that's the only place where it's really fun.
Absolutely. Yeah, it really is. It's an incredibly fun experience to tank. I'm definitely glad I picked the role. Right, I do like that role. I tanked in Guild Wars 2 as the tank. I played everything in Guild Wars 2. I mostly play a support healer in Guild Wars 2 these days, actually. But you know, I've also been a lot of the tank. Because often, funny enough, in Guild Wars 2, you'll be the healer and the tank at the same time. So it kind of like flows naturally, which is funny actually, because in the first class I played was Paladin in WoW, and I actually found that really fun for that exact same reason, because, you know, I'd kind of be off healing a little bit, like using blessings on
Paladin's the
people,
shit.
right? So much fun, really fun to play actually, in Mythic Plus and in Raid as well, because you have all that super nice utility. Definitely one of the more things that I would say is quite similar to Guild Wars 2 in some of the playstyles, like that kind of hybrid nature is a very Guild Wars 2
that's
thing.
the shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be really fun. Yeah, I Paladin has always been one of those tanks where if it's viable defensively, it's just way better than every other tank. And it hasn't happened too much over the last like 4 or 5 years. It's only been a couple of times, but every time it's so fun because you can, at least a good player will have a lot of interest in being able to keep everyone else alive at the same time as you, and that's something you don't get from other. Have you ever played a Blood DK by chance?
I have, yes. In fact, that's one of the characters that I am working on now, in fact.
Yeah, that is the, if you were to poll the best like tank players that play this game, you will get an alarmingly high rate of almost 100% of like what's your favorite tank to play, and it's Blood DK across the board. Yeah. It's just, it's you are just in absolute full control of your survival. You don't, generally speaking, need a healer, and yeah, it's so fun.
It is really fun spec to play, for sure. Very enjoyable. You know, I like. I think what's funny about it as well, though, is that, you know, sometimes, you know, you can just die instantly as well. Is you always that excitement as well, the excitement of knowing that you might instantly die. And actually, this is really interesting. I'm curious what people think about this. One of the frustrating things I've actually found about the game is that I won't say that, you know, you die because of RNG, because realistically, that's, I would imagine, almost never the case actually. But I find
if you
stuff
die
like,
ever, it's your fault.
I find stuff like parry chance and stuff like block chance to be a little bit annoying. It's like, because, oh wow, you know, oh well, I didn't parry, now I'm in a somewhat worse situation because of that. Oh, I didn't get a block, so I took way more damage than I was potentially expecting.
I think that's annoying in Raid specifically, especially if you're a class that heavily relies on them, because sometimes you'll get shit on. I feel like when you're doing Mythic Plus, it doesn't matter because it all averages out.
Yeah,
there's so many
calculations. Yeah, it's so many calculations that evens out
exactly.
incredibly quickly, right? For sure. Yeah.
But except on single target tyrannical bosses, that can be very, very a big deal. Like you can like parry and block, and you'll just randomly, you'll get a lot of tooth and claw procs randomly, and like, okay, now I'm invincible kind of thing. But yeah, I'm interested in one thing. So you're like a Guild Wars 2 streamer player. Do you still play? You're talking about all the shit you want to do in WoW. Are you like, have you like fully swapped to WoW? Is this a dead time in Guild Wars 2? Like what is your deal with that?
Yeah, I'm definitely playing WoW a lot more than Guild Wars right now. I played Guild Wars 2 for a long old time, and the game is definitely a little bit quiet, but I want to actually be really clear about this. People are going to meme about this, and I have a lot of love for the game, so I want to make sure that I don't disrespect it or give people the wrong idea. The game is actually probably in one of the most active states it's ever been. I'm actually a really big fan of the current game director. There's a new game director who's kind of taken over. However, the content that Guild Wars 2 releases is not really aimed at me, right? I am not really the target demographic for that game. There'll be some stuff for me, right? They are going to be releasing strike missions, and I love it when they do balance patches, right? There's loads of theorycraft that you can try out the new builds in PvP and stuff. That's great. But realistically, I am looking for something that is going to kind of satisfy a little bit more of a competitive playstyle, right? Which doesn't really exist so much in Guild Wars 2. It's a lot more of a relaxed experience that you kind of log on to, blast, and then, you know, kind of chill out. And I'm looking for something a little bit more intense, you know, a little spicier. And I think that WoW can be that game, at least for the time being, at least. But no, I am still playing Guild Wars. I know, for example, in fact, before Sarkareth, I actually did a full run of the, all the bosses in Guild Wars 2, for example, before this.
Oh, cool.
So I'm still playing. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, okay, that answers my question. That makes a lot of sense. So when you said they're making content not for you, I mean, the majority of WoW content as well is like just goes straight by me, and that's fine. I'm glad they do raids and Mythic Plus and stuff. But like, I am not the target audience for WoW for sure. But what about like, okay, so do they just make less raids now? Are raids like easy, so you're not a big fan of them? Like what about, like, can you elaborate more on they don't make content for you? Like, have they changed their content cadence?
So realistically, the writing has been on the wall for a little bit, it's a little bit of a complicated issue. But I would say that the thing that has actually kind of made my decision happen now is for a couple of reasons. Like, firstly, a lot of my friends have started to kind of drift away from the game, not take the game quite as seriously, and you know that sucks, right? And that's obviously diminished it. But the content release schedule, it's basically the same as it's always been. So right now, there are going to be 2 raid bosses a year for Guild Wars 2, 2 strike mission bosses a year. So again, you can put that up against WoW, and you guys can do the math, right? There's obviously
is that raids? Are strike missions raids, or
they are single boss
like
encounters? They're single boss encounters. So similar to the 14.
So it'd be like them
right?
releasing. It'd be them releasing Rashok, but
Yes.
just as a
yeah,
standalone.
just Rashok on his own, yeah.
Yeah. Wow. So is that always been the case? Have they always released that little raid content?
They're back in the first expansion. They originally planned to go really hard on raids. So a raid wing in Guild Wars 2 has 3 bosses in it, usually 3 to 4 bosses. And they originally were looking to do 6 raid wings a year. Maybe a little over-ambitious there, to be honest. But yeah, they originally wanted to go pretty hard on it. But the history of Guild Wars 2 is quite interesting. A lot of direction changes and leadership changes. And basically a game director at that point essentially changed their mind, right? And decided that they were going to very heavily focus on story and world-building exploration. And that's very much where Guild Wars 2 is going today. Very story-driven, narrative, open-world PvE focused direction. And then you've kind of got a bit of instance PvE on the side. You've got the PvP, of course, as well, and the world versus world. So that's where the game is at right now. To be honest, if I still had like a really kind of like try hard, if there was like a really try hard atmosphere in the game, I think I would definitely still, I would probably be more inclined to kind of keep grinding the game. But certainly a lot of players are in a similar boat, and a lot of people who kind of play the game in a competitive sense have kind of drifted away a little bit.
I mean, this totally makes sense. If you're saying they release basically 2 raid bosses a year, and you are a person who loves PvE and loves raid bosses, they're kind of like directly alienating you, right? So like, I mean, that's crazy, because like WoW releases, like, I think in terms of time it takes to complete it, like roughly twice as much content and expansion, maybe a little bit more than Final Fantasy does. And I thought that was low. You guys are like, you guys are like a quarter of that, right? I mean, that's like almost no content. So, I mean, that totally makes sense. If you're someone who is minded to go ahead and look at like you want to spam Mythic Plus, you want to do raids, like that's what you love in the game, Guild Wars just isn't offering you that, right? I mean, that you're exactly right in the way that you put that. I didn't realize it was like that.
Yeah, that's basically the deal there. And it's still great content. I'm certainly not, I'm going to log back in and I will be playing all of the new content and so on, but I'm just looking to play more than one game, to be honest, right now. And I'd never tried WoW. Again, I will say this, a big part of kind of why now, it's actually in a way kind of chance. Because I just tried WoW, and I'm like, oh man, this is awesome. I'm really having fun, so I'm gonna put some more time into it, right? I just simply hadn't tried other games for a long time, right? Because I was just, very caught up in it. Like I had a really big community there, and I still obviously like have a guild, I have a team that I play with, but it was I had a lot of big community there that has kind of fizzled over time, right? With a lot of people essentially doing the same thing as me. A lot the first kind of Guild Wars 2 raid scene exodus kind of ended up in 14 actually. A lot of kind of the Guild Wars 2 raid people went to play Final Fantasy and still do to this day. And this is kind of, I guess, the second wave, I guess, of Guild Wars 2 raiders trying other stuff. And yeah, it's World of Warcraft this time around.
So I have a question for you on a streamer side. So for a lot of people in chat, one of the like most dreadful and scary things for any streamer is kind of going out of their comfort zone and streaming a game that isn't like their main game. It's like this double-edged sword, because to swap to another category and get less viewers than you would in your main category is scary and feels bad, but it's also the only way you teach your audience that watching you play another game is something they want to see, right? So you went through that, and maybe you've gone through that before, but you've done a ton of WoW content on stream versus Guild Wars 2. How was that process for you? And I guess the thing I was going to say is scary is the alternative is you realize that you get more viewers on Guild Wars 2, so you don't play games that you want to play, and you feel forced to like create content for a game that you get more viewers in because it's your job, right? So like that's always like the scariest feeling of a creator, is like doing something that you're not really passionate about at the time. You're not getting enough from the game and you feel like you have to do it. So just how has that whole process been like for you, dealing with that? And then I mean, I was watching today, you had like a pretty good amount of viewers streaming WoW stuff, right? Like that's really good. So
Yeah.
so what has that been like for you?
Honestly, I think it's been fun. You know, I've in some ways, one of the things that actually has kind of prompted me to actually try out WoW is because in some sense, I've kind of run out of content to make in Guild Wars 2, in a sense, and a huge part of gaming for me has always been content creation, right? Like, I love streaming, I love, you know, interacting with people in the chat and talking about the game and having that discussion, all that kind of stuff. That's basically what I did in Guild Wars 2 for content, right? I was like the discussion guy, right? Let's talk about the game guy, all that kind of stuff. So kind of going into new territory, actually really fun. Obviously, my audience here is not developed, and to be frank, it's actually probably the most, the biggest jump you could make, because a lot of people who play Guild Wars 2 really don't like World of Warcraft. Not like, you know, a tribal thing. It's simply that the two games are very dissimilar.
Totally
yeah,
different,
like
yeah.
almost opposite, right? So there's you know, there's not going to be a huge amount of crossover there. It's going to take me some time to develop it, but honestly, it's fun. I definitely enjoy trying to do it. I think the big frustration for me is actually that I kind of like talking about the game and talking about stuff like raids and balance and the meta and how the game works and the systems. And certainly at the beginning, and still now, to be frank, I definitely feel like it's really hard for me to give really good opinions because I simply do not have the knowledge, for example, you know, of yourself, right, of someone like Dorky, right, and so on, all these, you know, these amazing players who make
No,
really
but
good
you bring a
content.
unique perspective. No.
Yeah.
I think that you actually have way more of a perspective than you think. And the first thing is you're like, oh, I'm going to say this, but it's controversial. You're looking at this from someone who's playing WoW for the first time. Most opinions you're seeing from people in WoW are people who have been playing WoW forever and have a certain level of being jaded about it, and they've seen enough things. And a lot of times they're not able to look at things for what they are because it's all tied in with this history and how the game used to be and all these things. And you're able to look at it as, oh, this is the first time I've played this and it's just fun and I like it, right? And that perspective, that opinion is important. I feel like that opinion kind of doesn't exist. There's almost no creators, people who really get it, that that actually have the perspective that you have. I would not underrate what you think your opinion is. I would give it loudly and proudly, and it's good. People are gonna hear it. You're gonna have WoW viewers for sure that hear that and they're gonna be like, no, you're wrong, and that's fine. That's like that's gonna happen in any game. But like the thing is that's authentic, and you're just saying how it is, and there really isn't enough of that. So
yeah. Hey, you know, I really appreciate that. And kind of on that note, when it comes to like streaming a different game, I definitely feel incredibly privileged to have been given the opportunity to talk to yourself, right? I've spoken with Preach as well, and Scripe a little bit too. Like it's, you know, super cool. I definitely feel very privileged to have been given these opportunities to actually kind of like hang out with the WoW community, right? And you know, meet the faces, talk to the people. It's been a really enjoyable experience. So I really appreciate that for sure.
Yeah. Cool. All right, do you have anything you want to ask me while I'm here? Anything about the new raid experiences you've had? Fucking anything?
Oh, that's a good question. Let's see. Do I have any questions? You know what? Here's a good one. Are you going to win?
Fuck yeah.
That's what
Yeah,
I
we're
like
really
to
excited
hear.
about
Let's
this
go. Yeah.
Yeah, we're feeling real good this raid.
All right.
I don't
like
know,
it.
Have you followed the race in general, like closely, or you just like look at like the box score at the end for a while?
Oh no, I in fact, you know, I I think I've sometimes even pissed off my viewers about this. When it's going, I'll often have it on my other monitor while I'm streaming. Yeah, no, I've been watching the Race to Worlds first. Since I think the first one I watched was Mythic Jaina, which I think is actually kind of when it started, was around then, wasn't it? Like, or when it became like a larger event. I think it was kind of around that time. I'm not totally sure, but yeah, no, I'm a big fan, big enjoyer. Love watching all the streams and seeing like who's gonna win and cheering on for the teams and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, cool. So like leading into this raid, we actually made a lot of changes. Like how we operated this raid was totally different from previous ones. We normally didn't have their PUVs up to, in effect, to like not distract us. We've kind of worked that in, and I think it's like a psychology thing. For a long time, we started ahead of them and they started behind. So naturally, they feel like they have to be as efficient as they possibly can be in every single day of progression because they have no choice. On the alternate, and that's obviously very good. On the alternate side, we and I have made mistakes in the past where there's this feeling of being rushed. Like you're starting ahead and you feel like you can never fall behind and you have to hold on to that as much as possible. That leads to faster splits. It means to chain pulling the boss. It's this feeling of being rushed and there's less efficiency because you feel like you just have to go as fast as possible. And this was a mistake we made for a long time that really led us to have an inefficient amount of pulls on a boss. We didn't spend as much time thinking and stuff like that. And that all changed this raid. We just kind of sat back, we looked at it, and we're like, hey guys, we've done this a few times. No matter what, who starts first, who starts when, 2 days into this raid, every single guild between the two of us is going to go to sleep ahead and wake up behind. It will always happen because that process just allows the slingshot every single day. So lean into that, acknowledge it, because before when they've passed us, we got really tilted. And we just like didn't really know how to handle it. I got tilted, we got tilted, and it was like it felt like we were falling behind and then you play worse and all that stuff. This raid, we really leaned into it. We knew what would happen. We were calm, collected. We woke up. We took what we could from them. We had like nice POVs for them to watch. We went in with a full plan. We had less pulls. If we were to kill a boss faster than Echo, even in time, like the same amount of time before, we would have 30-40% more pulls than they did because we were just chain pulling. This raid, we had less pulls and did bosses faster on basically every fight, I think, except for Rashok. That is not the case. We have slowed down massively. There's a high level of confidence. When we went to bed in previous raids, we knew they were going to kill these bosses in half the amount of pulls because they saw what we did. They can kill these bosses. And this raid, it wasn't that. We thought we did bad on these bosses. For our standards, we woke up and they killed it in more pulls than us with our entire strat, right? Going into it. And that level of confidence within the raiders, even in previous raids, if you were to ask going into the raid beforehand, like, how do you think we'll do in this raid? They're like, man, I mean, we obviously respect the fuck out of Echo, but like, yeah, I respect Echo. Like, I don't know, any guild can win. And a lot of that is because you know that they're great, right? You can play as well as you can, and sometimes they'll just play better than you. Like, they're awesome. But this raid is different. There's a different air around the guild. Last raid, we put in a lot of new ideas that really, really worked. The morale is as high as it could be, and there is a large confidence around the guild that this raid is very, very good for us, specifically the end of Fyrak, we think.
I love to hear it. Very nice.
And there is an air of confidence that we are very, very ready to win this raid.
Exciting. Wow, that is epic. You know, here's a fun one. I've got something as well. So, I am looking to take WoW relatively seriously, actually. You know, we're not doing World's First just yet. You better watch out, buddy. But like one thing that I definitely am interested in is definitely having a go at trying to do Hall of Fame. And maybe actually trying to push really high keys. I want to really get a proper roster going and try to even play competitively. You know, I'm a big fan of the competitive kind of esports side of just gaming in general. Been a big StarCraft fan for ages, right? You know, I'd love to have a go at even trying to qualify for something like TGP, right? Awesome. It was really enjoyable to watch. Loved it. What do you reckon? What do you reckon? Next season, what do you give our odds as the guild of pulling off a top 200? Because I don't really have perspective. I don't know how hard it is because I haven't tried before, right? What do you reckon?
So I've played some other MMOs and I've had like really high expectations, and you just kind of need to go through those things and learn them. I firmly believe, and this is not, I'll get to answering your question, but I firmly believe that no, like, person who's top in any MMO could go into another MMO and beat that top team because the games are too niche. And I'll give an example of that.
Of course.
So when we see a boss like Rashok and you're like dodging those mechanics and it's kind of a lot all at once, but if you've played WoW for like 8 years, you just like you've seen it before.
Yeah.
You have the intuition and you have that immediate thought in your head. Oh, I saw this mechanic for the first time. Oh, this is like this thing from that raid 4 years ago, and I remember how I solved that. And okay, snap, instantly it's done, and now I know how to do it. When you're a new player to WoW, and especially if you have a whole raid of those players, that is the most underrated aspect of raiding at a high level is just pure experience. You are just spending more time thinking about and dealing with mechanics that other people just do to pure second nature, and that is unbelievably OP and cuts a lot of time down in your progression.
Oh, of course.
So as far as you, first of all, you said getting top 200. You can absolutely get top 200. Top 200 isn't shit. Like that is depending on how much you raid, especially. You know, it's obviously difficult, but if you guys you know, felt like you got a lot better at the end and you continue progressing and you play the shit out of the game and you're really passionate about it and you have a history of being good in other MMOs, you can absolutely do something like that. Like, what did THD say? Hall of Fame is EG, top 100 is dog shit, base G. I mean, like, obviously, like, no disrespect to them. Like, a lot of those guilds are sick. It's just that, like, you can literally outraid them a lot of the time.
More
in
hours,
certain
let's
raids.
go.
Yeah, you can just outraid them if you want to. And then also, you know, I don't know, maybe in your first couple tiers, it's hard to, I have no idea how good you guys are. I would say it'd be easier to gauge after your first tier of feeling like you generally understand the game, have played at a pretty high level to get cutting edge before. You're gonna shave ranks and time off of what you did this time. You obviously know that. But as far as like how high you go, I mean, it just depends. Also depends on how many players you lose, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Depends on the vibe of the guild. Depends on your expectations, right? Like imagine your expectation next tier is, oh, let's get top 200, and then you don't get it, and then everyone's sad and feels like shit. But if your expectation is let's just get better, then maybe you end that feeling pretty good that you improved, and then you continue getting better, right? Like there's like a million things involved in this, and I don't know. To answer your question, I don't know. The whole qualifying for TGP, qualifying for it and getting a top 6 spot,
Very different. Very different. Yeah.
well, I like grand finals TGP, like okay, I again, I don't know how good your Mythic Plus team is, but they did like 3 cups, and the last ranked team in all those cups could probably be replaced by you if you put some time in. Global finals,
yeah.
global finals TGP. Again, this is me saying I have no idea how good you guys are. I just know that the bar of getting to that is not high. The global finals TGP is like impossible, and really the reality of anyone beating the Echo MDI team is like there's no, like, that team is insanely fucking good. Like, and they play together forever, so like the idea of winning is there's a reason they win all the time. So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, we'll see. And you're kind of on that note, actually. Is there interest within Liquid to actually have a go at challenging, right? Echo potentially in Mythic Plus? Because I believe there are some Liquid players who do, of course, participate, but I think there isn't, I guess, a formalized Liquid team as such that plays.
Yeah, I mean, we had. So Ben did a lot of Mythic Plus for us back in the day, and there was like a few raiders, and they ended up doing they won a global finals like back in BFA or something. But yeah, has there been like a Liquid or Limit like full team that like has our absolute best players on it and like we put everything forward to compete? That hasn't really happened. I don't think there's as much interest in Mythic Plus from those people. And I am also like, I have the ability to potentially sponsor one of them through Liquid. Like if I wanted to have a Liquid at Mythic Plus team next season, I could. But I'm not just going to do that with 5 people that are in Liquid. I would only want to put our name behind that if it's like people that are going to put in all the time they need to win, that really, really care, and absolutely fucking own like our very best players. Because I'm not interested in going in like halfway.
Yeah, you want to go for the win for sure.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, so like could that happen? Sure. But it's not like currently a priority, and also the right people have to kind of be interested in doing it. So yeah, I think could happen, but also even then, like Echo's team players are just as good and they have experience, and our players would just not have the experience. So it would take time probably to get that good at it as a team, because there's so many minor things about playing with a team that help by doing things over time. So yeah, I don't know.
Exciting stuff. Exciting stuff. Well, I think that's all I've got, unless something else you want to bring up.
No. Did you guys do any, even at a casual level, did you like do any raid testing for the next year? Do you know what the bosses look like?
Yeah, that is actually something that I guess could be, if we want to extend even more. This is super interesting to me, because no, haven't logged into the PTR at all. And this is actually why I feel like I'm almost not going to have the full WoW raiding experience until the next raid. Because, of course, I'm going into this raid with no prep, right? Whereas, of course, many players have even tried out some of the bosses on Mythic, even, on the test round, and like played with some of the new, the new builds, like the new balance and so on, all that kind of stuff. I'm not going to have that this time. That's going to be next time. I definitely will be doing that. But again, it's definitely a key thing that it does definitely change the way that you approach the content. Very interesting, with the fact that you can essentially have beaten a boss before it even goes live, because of course that massively changes the progression experience. Especially as a player that's less experienced when playing through it.
Yeah, so the testing thing is really interesting and often misconcepted by a lot of the community. So you don't get to test the last boss And usually the second to last and third to last bosses,
Yeah.
you can kill, but maybe you won't kill. But they're usually so they undertune all testing bosses because the purpose of testing is testing it. And if they overtune it, then people won't get to the last phase and shit. So they're like defeating the whole purpose of testing the fight, right?
Yeah.
So like you don't fight the progression versions of these bosses on testing. They're always harder on progression than they are in the version you get on testing, and that's intentional. And oftentimes the fights can completely change. So I would say about 70% of Mythic progression for us is like stuff we weren't able to test or see or do on the PTR because most of progression is the last boss anyway. And like, yeah, it doesn't really trivialize it. Like for the reality, like let's look at like Amalgamation Chamber. We got an hour to test Amalgamation Chamber on PTR and we one-shot it on progression. Same thing with Zakali, same thing with Kazara, same thing with these fights, right? So a lot of them, but in a way, those fights are not made for us. Right? They do not tune fucking Amalgamation Chamber for the Race World First or Forgotten Experiments or really any of those bosses until near the end. So us doing those on testing is kind of like a whatever thing. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. You get to learn about it. You get to like kind of feel how your classes will do. It makes you make a little bit better comp decisions, feel things out, try things out. Yeah, the testing process is actually really fun. It's actually like one of the few times a year I look forward to besides progression where it feels like progression and you get to try things. If you were to ask me if I would rather have no testing and have no dungeon journal, at least until the bosses have been killed the first time, and like you zone in and have to like figure out everything as you're seeing it, that is absolutely a better scenario than what we have now. That would be awesome. But I think that would really only be good for us and probably would be bad for the rest of the game, because the reality is these fights, which Blizzard is making more raid fights in any game, and like, you know, obviously they need a lot of work to them. So like, would these fights be in better quality without that? Probably not. They would probably get less feedback. The fights would probably be worse, right? So like, would it be better for the rest of the game to have that? No, it would probably only be good for us. So I doubt that that would be the case. But yeah, that's basically my whole thought on it.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. And of course, you know, without the PTR, as you say, right, it will be much harder for Blizzard to release the amount of content they do. Because you're definitely right, actually. The amount of content this game releases is a lot compared to a lot of other games. They really do crank it out pretty quickly, which is, you know, definitely assisted by the amount of testing that you're able to get, the feedback and and of course, you know, just the direct players like messing around with it. Of course, you do have mishaps, and I imagine that's why, you know, not testing the last boss. The downside of that is that, of course, you do end up with some weird situations. I think this kind of happened on Razagath, right, where like one ability pretty overtuned, I think we can say, right, and that does that in a way. Blizzard have to get it right. They have to kind of guess, well, how good are Echo and Liquid? I reckon they can do this. Slap that number on. Like, how good are the builds going to be? How good are the strats going to be? All that kind of stuff. So that's, of course, the downside of that. And that's, of course, the benefit of having that testing is that it prevents situations like that from happening on most of the raid. And, yeah, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, there's definitely, you could say there was one mechanic on Razagath that was overtuned. Yeah. But yeah, the thing is that they've also done, it's weird. Like, they've done fights that have not been publicly tested that were great and had no issues. Ragalon is one of the best second to last bosses ever. That boss was never tested. It was also had to be heavily nerfed and changed after it came out. Same thing with every other boss that was untested in that raid. Actually, I also think ever. Sarkareth was not tested, right? Sarkareth, good boss. They famously in this raid had literally no like weird bugs that had to be fixed for the first time ever. There was no overtuning, but it's in this raid either for the first time. But it's also possible that the reason that is because the raid was like relatively undertuned for the world first guilds, because we had like 6 eye levels more than we normally do. So if things were overtuned, we wouldn't even be able to tell, right? But generally speaking, you would have a decent idea, and that kind of didn't happen. But yeah, it's kind of gone up and down. I mean, I would love for them to, this is my opinion, I'd be willing for them to try it and it be fucking horrible and then change their mind, because I think the benefit of that would be huge. The thing is like, who are they actually doing that for? They're doing that for a couple of guilds. And again, they don't really make, contrary to a lot of, certain chatters' beliefs, they do not really make the game for us. So like in that scenario, you're not making a dungeon journal, you're not testing these fights. So a couple of guilds can do these fights without ever seeing them before, which would make the race world first cooler and it would enhance our experience. But for everyone else, they would still, by the time they pull these bosses, just have the exact same videos they do now. It would change nothing for them, unless you forcefully chose to not see a strat, which you could just do now. So, like, you know, that wouldn't change anything for anyone else. It would basically just be potentially sacrificing the quality of the raid content for everyone just to make the game slightly more fun for two guilds.
Thanks for the raid, Arsene,
and
so.
that just doesn't add up, right, with the amount of people who play this game. So I doubt they'll ever do it.
Yeah, it would obviously be a pretty extensive like change to the process, because of course there is an element of balancing around you, right? Essentially they do kind of do that, right? Like with the raid tiers, they're obviously thinking, okay, well, we want these guys to take about, you know, a week, maybe a little bit more than a week to take this down, so we've got to, you know, kind of fix the numbers there a little bit. Because yeah, it's funny actually. Here's the meme, because I do actually recall there was a slight bit of grumbling around Aberrus, people thinking it was a little bit too easy, I think. Some of that might have been a little bit assault, I feel like. But yeah, very interesting, and it definitely will be interesting for me to see like how the next raid is going to compare, actually. I think it's expected to be a little bit harder, if I'm not mistaken, compared to this current tier, actually.
Well, I'm about to do a raid boss review after this, and kind of what I'm doing for that is going through the like VODs of a couple of these fights and kind of giving a prediction on the amount of pulls that it will take to do these encounters. And then also, just so I can go back to it later and see, you know, how right or wrong that was. And then, and also like gonna give a general overview of how the fight layout works and just a general vibe check of it while looking at some public testing VODs. And I can say that I definitely think this raid will be harder for two reasons. The gauntlet of Laridar, Naimu, Smolderon, Tindril, and then the last boss, that all of those bosses are hard. They're on like the harder side. And that, like, there's nothing like that in this raid. That being said, another thing is we have less gear. So the upgrade system was like this big thing this patch, right? Like you were mentioning that like certain people thought the raid was too easy. The reason they were saying that is because of the amount of gear we had. They have nerfed that. They have nerfed the amount of gear we will have in the first week by nerfing the upgrade system. So naturally, you have less eye level, things are a lot harder. Like let's look at this raid. We have 2 less eye level for Neltharion. That changes a lot, right? The last phase burn becomes insanely hard. You have to lust on pull. So Echo did Echo of Neltharion without lusting on pull, and they lusted in the last phase to make it a lot easier. With 2 less eye levels, they were barely pushing that in time. You would have almost certainly had to lust pull, and then you'd have to do the last phase with 2 less eye level, very, very hard. You would have spent an extra a couple hours, maybe half a day on that fight. And then do you have enough time to kill Sarkareth? You know, how many more deaths do you have in P1 with 2 eye levels less of health, right? Like, you know, it could have changed everything, that alone, assuming that is the eye level difference that will be there in this raid. So, like, will this raid be harder? Almost certainly. The bosses are pretty fucking tough. And then,
very cool.
Yeah, it'll be really good.
Yeah.
And then the end of this raid, again, it was mainly a race world first thing. It was just certain, like most guilds had very, very similar time spent, or besides the Skarn cheesing, like, on bosses. Sarkareth took as long to kill as an end boss than most bosses, right? Or longer. You guys killed a hard one, for sure.
Hell yeah. So we love to see it.
All right, thanks for the talk, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for the talk. I always appreciate talking to you. You're really
Absolutely.
passionate about, when I would talk to you about Guild Wars, but I mean, obviously now you're into my territory, so there's a lot more shared things. So I'm interested. Yeah, I'm interested. Yeah, you're trespassing. I'm interested to see where you guys end up next year. I'll definitely be paying attention to your progression after it, and hopefully, if you guys make TGP, that'd be really interesting.
That would be fun. Absolutely. And hey, I really appreciate the conversation. Always fun. And I really appreciate the opportunity to speak some of the big gamers in WoW. And thanks to all, of course, to all of the Max viewers. I hope you guys enjoyed the show, watching us get knocked off the platform by that Mister spell. That was quite funny, wasn't it? But anyway, well, I guess I'll see you around.
That wasn't a Mister spell.
Yeah. But it was,
by the way,
someone took the gate too soon, right? I think we only got one of
them,
right? Like,
you gotta, the spell was on time. Just one of your dispel debuff criteria.
Yeah. And, one more thing, actually. Augmentation Evoker. In my mind, maybe not the brightest idea to add to the game. Thoughts?
One second, I have to respond to this guy. I have no response for that. Yeah, augmentation's a big problem. So I understand why they made it. I think casuals, just in general, if you look at support, there are a lot of people who play games that just love support classes. There are people who are good who do this as professional support players, but there's also people who are not very good, and support allows them to play the game they want to play, knowing that they're not as good at it, and that's fine, right? So that's okay, but it's kind of like when you mix that into a high level of WoW, I think that would be okay if someone joined a group as a support class and it was okay that they were there, that's ideal. But the fact that it's been so much more utility than every other class, its damage contribution has had it be best in slot in last Mythic Plus season, what looks to be in the next Mythic Plus season. Your Mythic Plus comp went from 5 classes to pick from to 4, super randomly. Also, another thing that I think people will try to play down as not too important is people don't like having Augs in raid because their details meter no longer means anything. There's a reason people have details meters and they don't go and look at logs, because it's more convenient and it's a quick way to check how much damage they or other people are doing. And details meters, until Aug is gone, or which it won't be gone by the way, or is like tuned down or not brought or whatever, your details meter literally means nothing. You have no idea how much damage you or anyone else is doing. And people really, really don't. It's not like a parsing thing. Like, people really just don't like that. And also I think part of Aug isn't really Aug. I think people for a while are really down on raid buffs. My tinfoils, I think they're removing them next expansion. And then they're also really, really down on PI, the whole like giving stuff to other people. People just want to do their own stuff, right? Blizzard is doubling down on that, and Augmentation is seen as the culmination of all of these things. They have like 4 required raid buffs. They're giving damage to other people. They're making PI better than it was previously. And I think people just absolutely hate that. I personally don't hate Aug, but I have a very, 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 very unique, like, weird thing. Like, I don't really care. Like, I'm not playing the game a lot, so like it doesn't affect me in a negative way, but I'm a raid leader in the race world first, and my only job is to solve problems and be creative. And you can be very, very creative and solve problems very interestingly with Augmentation, and I find that fascinating, right?
Yeah.
But I fully understand why most of my raid and also most people really, really dislike it. Just me personally, I like it because of that, but I understand it's a very like niche opinion.
It's just it's just super interesting for me to watch this, because it's just so similar to the history of Guild Wars 2 balance, actually. In fact, Augmentation, look, you can thank us for that in the Guild Wars 2 community, guys. Like, you guys borrowed our flying mounts for World of Warcraft and Dragonflight. And yeah, accidentally borrowed boons as well. Essentially, imagine the entire game being Augmentation Evoker. That's basically Guild Wars 2. And of course, by now, it's kind of been fleshed out and it works pretty well. But it was really interesting. Like, back in the original incarnation of the raid scene in Guild Wars 2, your raid comp would be exactly 2 Chronomancers, 2 Druids, 2 Warriors, and 4 Elementalists, because they had all of the augmentation, basically, and anything else was just, oh yeah, well, maybe your class isn't very good. And it was absolute disaster. Of course, by now that's been ironed out, and basically everything has been distributed. People complain a little bit about homogenization for this reason, because basically everyone's an org these days in Guild Wars 2, kind of. More of like a more personal DPS though. Like, for example, you do a lot of your own damage, but also you buff other people as well. That's kind of like how the game operates as well. But yeah, it's very interesting to see that come to World of Warcraft. The Holy Trinity is now the Holy Square, right? Need the extra thing there, the support role in there. How would you fix it?
No.
How would you fix the issue? I'm super curious, as someone who obviously has a very deep understanding of the game. How would you... What do you think the actual problem is, and how would you fix it?
Okay, so now that it's here, and the solution to fix it is removing it ever being implemented in the first place, as long as all of us, hopefully, you guys have not been huffing copium enough to think that they'll actually remove it, because...
No, they're not doing that.
because yeah, I mean, like, people say this unironically, like, there's literally no way that they would do that. The way they fix this is they make Aug acceptable to be brought to content, but not BIS. So, like, your best dungeon comp literally never involves augmentation. It is something that a lesser skilled player will play to support some of their friends, and that's fine, but it's not BIS, and that includes in raid. Because without doing that, you're never going to have it not be best in slot. The reason why is augmentation is actually harder than people make it out to be, especially in raid content. And if they ever make this class or spec that is deliberately designed for casuals that do not want to try as hard and still be valuable, if you make the class balanced for them, it is impossible to make it not obscenely broken for people who are going to optimize it for as high as it can be. And then the scenario could be, oh well, then you're gonna make it really, really bad for casuals and then like have it balanced at the top end, but then you're just missing the entire target audience. So the reality is they need to make it easier, and I mean that, like literally easier than it is now, so that anyone could do it, and it's like basically no skill at all, and you just make it so at the very top end it's not very viable. Now, as far as like people screaming about it, and like you mentioned the Guild Wars raid comp thing, that's happened. Like you played AUG for half of one season. That is like alone, people will point that out as like the reason why it's bad. Like, oh, it's just the Mythic Plus comp now. There have been classes that have held down a Mythic Plus optimal spot for an entire expansion. That's not the problem, right? So like, that's not the problem at all. I mean, multiple expansions almost. So it is, it's certainly the most powerful thing to ever be added to Mythic Plus. But as far as it taking a spot, which people frequently reference, that is true. That's been true with many classes for many full seasons, right? That's not the real issue. It's the direction of the game, and really a lot of the hatred towards AUG is a culmination of the hatred towards raid buffs, external things, and people voicing their displeasure with any of that, and there's a lot of people who don't want any of it. So I think it'll be interesting to see how Blizzard handles the direction of it, because I even don't know, again, we mentioned this earlier, how top-end players are way more likely to have their opinions be seen. Twitch streamers almost always play the game all the time, so they're going to have a certain opinion, and then people watch those streamers and give their opinions based on them. And then also, you just have the people who AUG is designed for are not on Twitter, they're not posting on forums, they're not doing that, right? So if you were to ask me whether AUG had a net approval rating just by reading Twitter or reading my stream chat, you'd be insane. It has an extremely negative approval rating in that. But if you were to actually poll all WoW players,
love it.
I would bet it's positive.
Yeah.
And that means that maybe we're not going in that direction, which is why people are in there, and rightfully so if they feel this way, are being super vocal about it, because they absolutely, part of the game absolutely fucking hates this shit. Like more than they've hated many things. So it's going to be interesting to see how they approach that.
Yeah, I completely agree with what you said. That was my read on the situation for sure, which is why I'm kind of expecting them to fix the problem. This might be spicy. I almost feel like they're very likely to add more Augmentation Evokers to the game, right? So essentially alleviate the issue of you only having Aug by making more Augs, so that there's something else that kind of fills the spot, as it were. So you have a little bit of variety there, which seems to be like a direction they would go. That's basically what Guild Wars 2 did, right? Essentially. Very curious if they're going to go that way.
You probably hate to see this from Guild Wars 2 because you know how that played out. I can tell you if they ever announced that, people would be unbelievably doomer about it. I think there's a world where, okay, so the best thing is no AUG, but the second best thing is not one. It's actually probably multiple. And then probably worst case scenario is actually support class exists and there's only one of them and it's so much better than everything else, right? Like Lost Ark has a support role and you just want one of them for each like group of 4 people, and like that's just kind of how you play the game. And like that works for that game. I don't know if WoW is trying to go after that. But it is just weird when it's only one class. And then people are like, increase dungeons to 6-man so it accommodates the 1 tank, 1 healer, 1 support role. I mean, maybe, but it's just like you're dancing around a lot of hoops.
Yeah.
I think people are just going to be like, hey, the game, all this didn't exist before you added this spec, so maybe it, but I mean, like I said, it's just simply not going to be removed. So, I don't know. More support specs is probably better than only one, except for the fact that it shows you what direction they're going. But I think it's already obvious what direction they're going, which is kind of why people are freaking out about it.
It honestly did kind of work out in Guild Wars 2 in the end. I think that's mostly because of the system, that there's no concept of like a unique buff. Everything's a generic buff. If you recall, you have like might and quickness, right? So it actually did work out well, having a lot of variety there. And it has worked out here, but I don't think that approach would work in WoW because the games are very fundamentally systemically different, right? In that sense, it would be a very different situation adding like multiple supports for sure. But it is a difficult issue because I think you're, again, very much correct in the sense that, yeah, the design of the spec is, in some sense, like inherently disruptive to the game, right? Which is kind of the problem, I guess. But I must let you go.
It's a very...
please go ahead. Yeah, I must let you go. I've delayed you long enough. Your stream is begging for content.
No, you haven't delayed me.
Right?
No, I've been enjoying all of this for sure. No, yeah, it is. I'm gonna head out and do some other stuff. But thank you for the call, and congrats to your guild if they're still listening on your all's on your kill, and hopefully you secure the title this season. I imagine it'll maybe go up a little bit more near the end. I think actually this is the first season where I heard it went down 1 week randomly, but Because like Mythic Plus is turbo dead right now. But yeah, I don't know if that's still the case. But yeah, hopefully you get that. Thanks for the conversation. I'll end it here so we don't keep talking forever. I'm one of those people too that'll just keep going. Yeah.
Oh.
All right. Thanks for the call, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Have a good rest of your stream. Thank you very much for the conversation. Thanks to all the viewers there as well. And yeah, I'll see you around. Take it easy, gamers.
Yeah, see you, man. Yeah.